How are you, Nicola?
Well, Richard,
How are things?
I'm really good. Richard, you're very, very welcome to the Soulchats podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be on.
Thanks a million. Richard, I want to set an intention from the outset with you, if that's okay.
Oh, good God, that sounds terrifying.
Okay. So, my intention behind doing this podcast with you is to, number one, make everybody aware that is currently unaware how much our children are being failed by exposure as children to pornography and
Mm,
suicidal ideation on social media.
yeah.
Is that
Okay.
fair?
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a good reason.
Because the 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 maximum amount of exposure that we can give to parents are going to arm them with information and tools so that they can proactively protect their children.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. That's
Okay.
exactly why I'm here.
So I feel like my heart is broken looking at the kids these days, but I really feel like the kids are being failed, Richard.
Okay.
You want to give me your opinion on that?
Um, yeah, first of all, I suppose it's like try not to think about the kids as these days as in like you're heartbreaking for them. Because they're going through adolescence like all of us went through adolescence. The
Yeah.
only difference is that they have their devices, it's been recorded, their adolescence has been recorded and they've been fed
Yes.
information and all that. So adolescence has always been tricky. And
Yeah.
adolescents, 200 years from now, they'll still be going through kind of coming of age and going through some of the same stuff that they're going through now. But technology will have progressed so dramatically that we can't even imagine 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So, try not to think about them like that because that might, I'm talking to teenagers all the time and they have to go through this period in life. What it's about is trying to get better skills as parents, a better understanding of what it is to parent a screenager today and what are the issues.
Teenager. I like that one, Richard.
Yeah, well, I wrote a book back in 2020 called Parenting the Screenager.
Brilliant.
Um, and so it's about, getting better understanding of it. It's not about sensationalizing or scaring the crap out of parents. It's about
Mm.
giving them the right tools and the good and the right upskilling so
Yeah.
that when they, come to deal with any issues that will arise, of course, they've got some good strategies for it. But of course,
Yeah.
the big challenges today, I would see, is the early sexualization of our children, something I'm
Yeah.
talking about a lot, right?
Yeah.
The IWF, the International, Internet Watch Foundation, released their statistics that showed that between 7 and 10 there was an increase in
Mhm.
self-generated sexual material.
Yeah.
That's so ordered like something like 275,000 sexual images that were found online. 92% of those were self-generated. Now that's something to be really aware of. Like, that's to me, that's the early sexualization of our children.
Yeah.
That's what's happening currently. That's the normalizing of
Mm.
sexual material and
Yeah.
smartphones bringing our children into these earlier adult themes than they should go into them. And so what I would say what we're looking at really is like, loss of innocence too early,
Yeah.
loss of childhood too early. And these are sacred things, Nicola, as you know, and as
Absolutely.
I know, and any adult watching this, once you lose that bit of innocence, there's no way of getting that back.
Can't uncrack the egg.
No, you can't. And so it's not about coddling, cosseting our kids till they're 14 or it's just let's try to, let's try to,
Mm.
remove the amount of
Mm.
real harmful material that they consume at such an
Mm.
early age. That's all it
But,
is.
but even at a basic level, Richard, I would see mammies encouraging small children to pout.
Right. For their picture.
You know the fishy lips.
Yeah, yeah.
I would observe that in circles, and I banned my children when they were very small from changing any of their facial expressions during a photograph,
Mm,
even as basic as that. And I pulled parents aside and said, listen, if we're giving our children even the smallest little indication that you have to physically change your face and pout and over sexualize a 6 year old, a 7 year old, an 8 year old, what message is that telling them? It's telling them they're not good enough,
mm,
that they need to change.
yeah.
What do you think of that?
Um, yeah, it's I mean, I just think there's so much layers
Mm,
to what's going on and what we're kind of the messages that we're giving our kids. I just don't think any kid under 12, 13 should have a smartphone personally. I
mm,
don't think any kid in fourth class or third class or fifth class, has any business been around a smartphone. They're too powerful. And
mm.
all of that stuff about image and self-image. And of course, when you're feeding your child ideas about appearance and aesthetics and what looks nice and what doesn't look nice,
Yeah.
you're creating a misery there down the line because we know from neuroscience that thoughts about self are statistically indistinguishable from negative emotions. And
Yeah.
so, so the more you think about yourself on a superficial level, the more you're going to be miserable. And the more you know yourself, Nicola, and as I know myself well, aesthetics don't last, and youth doesn't last. And let's be honest, when you are youthful and beautiful, you don't appreciate it anyway, because
Mm.
you're consumed with such insecurity. And and then when it leaves you, you know,
What are you left with?
what are you
If you
left
don't have
with?
any foundation of yourself or sense of self
Yeah.
on the inside, well, then when the outside is
What's
taken away,
left? Yeah, exactly.
what are you building on then?
Yeah,
That's why I'm
absolutely.
big into advocating for kids, in the sense that if you give a child a solid sense of confidence, that then eradicates exposure, the choices that they're making, prevents a child from being vulnerable, all them
The
things.
person they get into a relationship with, sending images, all of these things, and having the strength when they consume something, because they're going to consume something dodgy, to understand where that came from and what platform that was, and to avoid it. All of those things are really important. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I have a concern, and when I said earlier on, my heart is broken for the kids. My heart really is broken for the kids, Richard, because they're being exposed to stuff unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
My heart is broken for parents who are overwhelmed,
Well, parents are overwhelmed, Nicola. There's no doubt about it.
overwhelmed parents.
Yeah.
And what I've seen over the years, I've seen a trajectory in parents who are overwhelmed, don't know how to handle situations with their kids, and they're nearly for a bit of peace for themselves, for a break for themselves, they're nearly abdicating responsibility of parenting to the devices.
Ah, well, yeah, that's it. There's no doubt about it. These parents, these tools, these devices, not these parents, these devices are really powerful.
Mm.
And in my clinic, when I'm working with families, I often meet the parents first, and they're often wondering, when am I going to meet their son or daughter? But I'm trying to get the policy and the dynamics in the family correct first before you
Yeah.
introduce any sort of like conversation with the child. In the 80s, Nicola, they used to have a warning on TV to say you can't outsource your parenting to Bosco. And
I remember.
remember? And now, with these devices, which are incredibly immersive, incredibly powerful, designed by psychologists and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
the whole business model is you going out and you going in. They're selling your gaze, they're selling your
Mm.
your attention coming out and going in. So they're designed for that. The like button, the notifications, the infinite scrolling, all of that stuff is designed to keep you
Addiction.
trafficking. Yeah, it is absolutely to keep you trafficking and keep you kind of in flux and keep you kind of going out and going in, which will hit your dopamine and move you
Yeah.
towards being addicted to it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so they are very powerful,
Yes.
and so we just have to protect our kids. Again, about parents being overwhelmed. I think parents are overwhelmed for a number of reasons, and a bit of it is like the amount of talk about parenting currently.
I know.
I know from all different sorts of people, and you're kind of going, you got to be careful with the information you listen to,
Mm.
because there's a lot of people calling themselves experts.
Mm.
And I think anyone who positions himself as an expert, and blah, blah, I've got kids here myself, and it's funny when I shout up the stairs to them, they say, there's the family therapist, when I'm
Mm.
giving out to them or saying, turn off the bloody lights, and we're all living these real lives, you know what I mean? And no one gets it perfect, and
Absolutely.
we're just trying to make the best of it. Of course, I've got a lot of experience and a lot of clinical work and a lot of, research and writing and all the rest of it. But there's no way you're perfect or you're absolute expert.
Yeah.
You got some
There's no such
ideas.
thing as a perfect parent.
No, there absolutely isn't. And I think that's what's kind of been given to parents at the moment. And that's what
Yeah.
makes you overwhelmed. If you're constantly thinking, Christ, I have to be this perfect parent. And what I say to parents, actually, you know what? Sometimes the reality is being okay as a parent is good enough. And sometimes not being a great parent is actually, that's okay too. When you shout at your child, it's like,
Mm.
that's not the worst thing in the world either. Okay. You want to keep the minimum, you want to keep the severity of that to a minimum, obviously.
Mm.
But the
Mm.
reality is, what can happen to kids sometimes is that they come up in this family where there's no raised voices and there's no, conflict, and and then they go off into school and they have this incredible, profound crash when they meet
Yes.
reality, and so
Yeah.
that's why I said to parents, when you lose your temper and you're hungry and all that, I say the same to my kids sometimes. If I lose my temper with them, I'm like, I'm actually really hungry and I'm
Yeah.
tired.
I'm
And so
hungry now.
yeah, I'd say that to them, and they go, "Oh God, a hungry Hogan." That's the joke, a hungry Hogan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm a hungry Hogan right now, so you're going to see my worst self right now. So
Yeah.
don't torment
My
me here.
kids throw bananas at me and all when I'm hungry. Feed her quick.
But you know what I mean? That's the important thing for parents to think, because I could come on here and present myself as this expert who has this perfect relationship and there's nothing, and it's crap, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, no, we're all trying to do our best. And
Mm.
that's another thing. That's how to prevent yourself from getting overwhelmed at times. Being only okay as a parent, that's enough sometimes.
Yeah.
And even losing your temper, it's how you resolve that, you know. And I say to my kids
Yes.
afterwards, I'm
It's
sorry
what
about
happens
that.
afterwards,
Yeah, I
not
said, I'm sorry about
during it.
that. Shouldn't have raised my voice like that. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Whatever it is, you know, you did do this and that respond that I reacted like this. And so you're having a kind of conversation about how you resolve conflict. And so when they have conflict in their lives, when they go into school or whatever it is, it's not so terrifying. They've had
Yeah.
it, you know, and they've dealt with it. And actually, when my daughter might stand up to me and say, you know, you were wrong there, I'd say, yeah, I'm not trying to crush your spirit. I'd say, you know, I'd say, you're right. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. Fair
Mm.
play to you.
Mm.
And well done for saying it. And so you're
Yeah.
trying to build, you
Yeah.
know, in a
We're
way that they
teaching
can say
these
it
kids to be
respectfully.
empowered. We
Yeah,
might not
empower
like it,
them.
Richard, in the moment,
No,
and our
I
kids
don't
give
like it
our
when I'm in
skills
a,
back to us.
when I'm bad mood and I'm tired and they stand up to me. I don't particularly care for it.
Yeah.
But you know, that's good. I understand, you know, there's a bit of me that says that's good. I like that because I've got
Yeah.
three daughters and I'm kind of going, you know, I want them to have agency and I want them to kind of like not do stuff that they don't want to do in life, if you know what I
Yes.
mean, in relationships
Yes.
and that. And I want
Yes.
them to have that agency where they can say no, and I want them to have that agency where they say yes, you know. And so that's kind of a part of my parenting always as you know, as a parent,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not as a psychologist, psychotherapist, or theorist or anything. It's just as a parent, as a human
Yeah.
being. I want
As
them
a
to be
dad.
strong. Yeah, I want them to
Yeah.
be strong.
Just to give people an example of that, there is no such thing as a perfect parent. I would work with kids myself a lot,
Yeah.
and I was recording a podcast here with my son. He was 18 at the time,
God.
and he asked, could he come on the podcast, which I was very shocked about because he's so private.
Yeah.
And there was a team of people that I'd never met standing in this very room, the other side of the cameras. And during the podcast, he outlaid to me that he had been experiencing poor mental health, but he couldn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a kick in the head for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a parent, I personalized that.
Yeah. Of
Because I'm like,
course.
what did I do? What did I not do? Am I not creating a safe space for him to fall? And all them things. It's Jamie's journey. It was Jamie's experience. But I wanted to just let parents know that from my perspective, and from you just said it yourself, you threw yourself under the bus. We don't always get it right.
Yeah,
And
and
sometimes you need to
having
do
a
it
low
what you did.
yeah, exactly. But having a low period with your psychology doesn't mean there's any failing. You know what I mean? Then that's the stigma that I suppose you felt there, is that there must be something about my parenting. And I mean, we can all have, and me and personally, we can all have, particularly as teenagers as well, we all have low moments in our mental health and our psychology, and we have bad thinking, we have bad thoughts, and we've bad, you know, we have low mood and can be persistent and all that. That doesn't mean that there has to be any, you know, failing on the part of anybody. It's
Yeah,
just that's what we kind of go through. As you know, the brain is a high powered, you know, problem solving machine. It's
yeah,
not designed for elation or happiness all the time. It's designed to solve all the problems around us. And
yeah.
so it's looking for problems all the time. And,
To
you know,
fix. Yeah,
yeah, and at times it's just, you know, it goes against us a little bit.
yeah. Because sometimes we can search for the negative.
Well, we are designed for that.
Yeah, we're set up
We're
for
hardwired.
our
We're
DNA.
absolutely, yeah, it's
Yeah.
hardwired. Yeah.
You said a moment ago there about the dopamine hit and the likes and the
Mm,
interaction online is addictive, right?
yeah.
And I want to just wrap that around people getting a false high, filling themselves incorrectly from the outside in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to tie that into something that I'm developing at the moment with regard to um I have to be very careful around how I phrase this. I believe that there's certain things that we see from kids online. I'm dying to hear what your opinion is around this. So I watched the documentary that you were involved in the other night on RTÉ, which was outstanding, by the way. And if anybody hasn't watched it,
In the prime time, is it? Yeah.
yeah, please
It
go
was
and watch it.
incredible. Yeah.
It was brilliant. But there was some screenshots from comments from kids, right? And I'm just going to read two of them that stood out for me. One of them is, if I lose my battle, stay alive for me, okay?
Yeah.
The other one is, can't wait for the day everyone realizes they ignored all the signs when they were so obvious,
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible.
right? Now,
It's
it is
so
terrible.
problematic.
It is terrible. However, the little hairs on my head are all standing up because what I want to say to you is this. I believe from what I've seen from people coming in and out of here and the community groups with kids that I've worked with over the years, that sometimes that behavior and that language is also attention seeking behavior in the wrong way.
Hmm.
What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that was TikTok was feeding those videos to
Yeah.
a fake account, right? That comment, I can't wait for the day that somebody, that they will realize that they
When
missed.
everyone realizes they ignored all the signs
Yeah,
when they were so obvious.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, that is suggesting suicide.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day where I'm not around, and then everyone can wallow in the fact that they missed all the signs. And so there's something in that that's saying that, they'll finally see you when you're dead. I mean, that is so problematic. I hear what you're saying about the attention, but before that, that is so problematic because when you're having a low episode, the way out of that is to connect to people, and the way out of that is positivity, and the way out of that is
Absolutely.
good connections with your friends and your community. That's a huge thing. And then, good behaviors and bringing really positive things in yourself. That's how you get out of a low episode. That stuff drenches you in negativity. And then when you're having a vulnerable moment like that, and someone says, "Well, they'll finally get you when you're dead." I mean, that is so dangerous. That is absolutely dangerous. And to your second point, if that attention, well, say the voice behind that is desperately seeking something.
Absolutely.
The voice behind that is, and so I'd meet a lot of kids who come to me, and they mightn't have the most profound mental health experiences going on in their lives, right? And you could easily classify it as like, there's nothing going on here but attention. Um, but that is something. I mean, that's
Yeah,
isolation. That's not been
absolutely.
witnessed. That has not been witnessed. That's not having your voice heard. That's feeling incredibly powerless. That's all of those things that we feel from time to time.
The
And
gap
so it's like
that needs to be filled,
that's what needs to be
but they're
filled
filling it
before.
in the wrong
Exactly.
way.
Absolutely. They're filling it with, well, they're getting some attention through their negative psychological experience that they're putting forward, of course. But
Mhm.
it's more, it's probably deeper than that, and it can be all that attention stuff. And of course, that's a huge thing. What do any of us want? And particularly when we're teenagers,
Mm.
our brains, the brain regions that are associated with, like, feedback and attention,
Mm.
they're far more sensitive in adolescence than any other time in our, in our journey.
We were talking about the attention seeking, and there's a gap.
Well, you see here around the attention seeking, and it's not. I've been saying this for a long time, Nicola, because I work in schools and I sit on a board at the National Advisory Council, and I'm engaging with principals in schools all over the country. I'm talking at least 2 or 3 times a week in every school, around the country, and I'm in schools, and I'm talking with teenagers all the time. So I'm pretty immersed in this world.
Yeah.
And so what I've been saying for the last number of years is that I think we're going around the mental health promotion a little bit wrong here. I think there's too much talk about mental health. I think we've got too much advertising in the school. And and I say this to principals, you have to be very careful about who you let you into your school to talk to your children. That's a key thing, right? And I'm not saying that people shouldn't come into the school and talk. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that we should stigmatize mental health. I'm not saying that at all. But I think we have to be better about who we let into the school, because too many times I'm sitting in my clinic where a girl is telling me that she tried self-harm because somebody came into the school and talked about their experience of self-harm. I mean, kids are so suggestible,
I
there's,
couldn't
you
agree
know,
with you more.
I know, but it's true, and and I got a bit of flack from that, and a couple of you know celebrities might come out and say that's stigmatizing mental health. But no, what I'm saying is that we've got the perfect storm for mental health. If all this talk about mental health and all this promotion about mental health and our children were a much better place, statistically, we would say, well, it's fucking working. It's great. What we have to look at is the stats and
Mm.
look at it like what children are experiencing, and it's like a pandemic, an
Yes,
epidemic of anxiety
I
and
agree.
depression.
I
And
agree.
so we have to turn around and say, well, the research is showing us that no, this isn't actually impacting kids in a very meaningful way. In fact, actually, it could be, and this is what I would say, we're endorsing mental health issues amongst the teenagers, because in some ways it's uncool not to have one. I'm not saying that children don't suffer and don't struggle. I'm not saying that for a second, but I'm
Mhm.
saying what we have to be careful of as, professionals and experts and teachers and clinicians and all the rest of it is that we're not endorsing mental health promotion amongst children, because if you put negative things around the windows and the schools and it's okay
Richard,
not to be
I,
okay,
I
and
lose the head when I'm walking around some schools for the stuff that I see that is
yeah,
advertised. And
absolutely, and saying
even as simple as something as anti-bullying. Why can't we have something on the wall which is pro-friendship?
yeah, something
The
more positive.
language is everything. The language is
I
everything. And what
agree,
we
and
focus
that
on
language
can.
matters. That language absolutely matters. And kids are so suggestible. And I do this to them when I'm talking sometimes, just to show to them. I'd say to them, if I'm talking to them in the evening and I'm meeting them in the morning, I'd say to them, just to show them, I'd say, if you get, as a doctor, I say, if you get a pain in your right toe, that can be the sign of a heart attack. And I just leave them with that, and they'll be going, "What the hell did he tell us that for? That's a bit weird." And I meet them in the morning, and I'd be chatting to the same group again, and I'd say, "Do we all sleep well last night?" And I know for a fact a couple of them would say, "I had a terrible night's sleep," and I'd say, "Oh yeah, what happened? I had pain in my right toe." And they say, "Well, there you go. There's the suggestibility of like, what that's why when you see something negative, that's why it can drench the soul so quickly, and
Yes.
particularly in adolescence when your whole brain is wired for fear, for peer feedback and reinforcement from your peers, and everything in your brain is wired for attention, right? I
Yes.
mean, it's wired for attention and it's wired to read what adolescents are saying to you. And so that's why it's dangerous. What we need is the right structures. We
Mm.
need the right systems in place to support our kids, but we also need a really good positive mental health promotion where we're telling them it's okay to be okay. That's a really important thing. When they come into my clinic and they'd say to me, "No, I'm feeling crap," and I'd say, "Well, between 1 and 10, where are you?" They'd say 4, and I say, "That's pretty good."
Yeah.
No, that's good. I said, if you think about it, most of us are only okay most of the time. I mean, that's kind of where we are all the time. And
Yeah.
maybe if I ask myself all the time, how do I feel? How do I feel? How do I feel? All these body checks and checking in with myself.
Mm.
I mean, I'd be a mess going around the place
Yes.
because a lot of the times
No
I'm
wonder
running
people are
here.
anxious.
Exactly. I'm running here and I'm running there and I'm running there and getting here and maybe, I'm trying to get this and trying to get to that. I mean, if I'm saying, how do you feel right now? Again, statistically, thoughts about self are indistinguishable from negative emotions. So the more you think about self,
Mm.
neuroscience would say, the more miserable you are. And so
Mm.
what's the antidote to that? Feeling a part of things, being a part of your community, thinking
Belonging.
about others, thinking about bigger things than just you.
Mm.
They're the antidote to all of that stuff.
Mm.
What do people who come into you and talk about mental health and all that? They talk about their experience and what's gone on with them. And then they're going to give kids any way out of that. They just tell them their experience. And
Mm.
so what you're doing is that the pain in your big toe, you're suggesting something to them, and then off you go. And
Mm.
like, no, that's
Kid,
that's that's a problem.
a kid approached me the other day and she said, now this was in a public setting, and she said, I'd never met her before. And she ran up to me and she says, I feel crap. Help me. What will I do? And I said, I'll tell you now, I'm going to give you a bit of a challenge. I said, go off there now, find 2 people that you can connect with and do something nice, just something small. Go off and do something nice for them and come back to me and tell me how you feel. So off she popped. She went back in 5 minutes. She told me the 2 things that she did. And how do you feel? I feel great. Great.
Well, that's
That's
it.
her life. I said,
Connecting
so
to
now
something
you
bigger.
know by extending yourself to somebody else and connecting with that person, you know that your bonds are going to be stronger with that individual. Your energy level is going to rise, their energy level is going to rise, and the people who saw you doing it, their energy level is going to rise. So I was explaining the emotional
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
She was delighted for her life coming back.
that's it.
Now I'm getting loads of stories about stuff that she's doing to feel connection with other people.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, it is. The connection is.
Connection is the key. I mean, the Harvard grant study found all that. That's amazing. You gave her a great little life lesson there.
Yeah, but and it's great because she'll never forget that. She'll never
Mm,
forget it because it made such a big fuss about her. But
exactly.
also the people who observed it will never
Yeah.
forget. Um, what do you think are the best things that that families can do right now to protect their children from overexposure of things that we just don't want them to be exposed to on social media?
Well, here's the thing. You can't stop them completely. It's too big of a thing. There's no doubt about it. But you can put a few things in place. So, first of all, what I say to parents, be very careful about handing your child a smartphone, right?
Because the
Because
power
once
of the world is in that.
once they take that into their hands, they take everything the world has to offer there,
Mm.
and they're connected to everybody, and that's it. And some people are well intentioned and good, and as we know in life, some people are not so good. So just I'd be very wary about the age that you give that because you can't take it back out of their lives again once you give it to them. And I have a 13-year-old daughter myself, and I saw this summer when she got in at the end of sixth class, after her confirmation, moving into the summer, I saw her world change. I saw, I literally saw it in front of my eyes. I've been writing about this for over 10 years. And so it's a powerful thing. There's no doubt about it. And this is how adolescents are communicating. And so it's not about slamming technology. There's loads of positives,
Absolutely, there's lots
and
of
there's loads of
positives.
things about it that are doing great. We know we're living longer than ever. We're curing lots of illnesses. So it's not about slamming technology, but it's about understanding that having a good boundary around your technology. And once you hand over the phone, as you're handing it over, what I would always say, set out the boundary at that point, because it can become really problematic when they're 15 or 16. So you have to set the culture very early, and you have to be kind of like, really kind of good on that culture. My daughter's not delighted when I take the phone off her at nighttime. She's not delighted that she hasn't got it overnight.
Neither
Her
was
friends,
mine.
no, that's the way it goes. And so you have to be comfortable with your own child's discomfort as a parent, because here's the thing, Nicola, you're not their best friend.
Mm.
And best friends don't tell them when to go to bed, and best friends don't tell them what to eat, and best
Absolutely.
friends don't, give out to them, and best friends aren't giving them morals and lessons in life.
Yeah.
Generally, some of them might, but generally.
The line in my house was, I'm here to get a job done. I'm not here to be your pal.
Yeah.
They
They
used
have
to
their own
hate,
pals.
they
Yeah. Okay.
hated that line. I'm not
Yeah.
here to be liked. Oh, the other one was, I'm not here to be popular.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be popular.
No.
I'm here to get a job done and create a legacy.
Exactly. And so I think I think parents, particularly in today, have a more difficult job than ever before. And then we're both working generally in the relationship, and there's more, excuse me, more financial demands than ever before. And so all that's a pressure. And so when you come to parent at the weekend, you might give in a bit more easily because you feel guilty about all the work you're doing and how you don't see them as much. And then you think about your own parents and how much maybe your mom had with you. And so you, particularly women, I think, can feel real guilt there. And of course, times have irrevocably changed. And so it's about understanding all of those motivations that make you kind of give in and want to give your child everything, because that's a desire to kind of like, be their friend and make up for maybe all the pressure that's on you.
And you were
No, you
hungry and
can't.
you shouted at them.
Yeah, you can't do that. You have to parent. You cannot parent from a position of guilt,
Yeah.
right? You have to parent from your position of parenting, being by their side, not on their side. You're not on their side. When you're on their side, you're their best friend.
I like that. I like that one.
Yeah, yeah. Don't be
By
be
their side, not
not
on their
on it.
side. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's a very important one, right? And so I've been saying that for years now. I'd be by their side, not on their side. Then I know when I worked in a school in Catholic University School on Leeson Street, the deputy principal Kevin Jennings said that one time, and I thought that
I've
is
heard that
it.
one.
That is it. That's the
I've heard
phrase
that
there.
one.
Yeah,
On
and
to, sorry, go ahead, Richard.
yeah. So just the tips there is to get the boundaries right. Don't use the phone as a parenting tool. Don't take the phone off them. Don't do that. Right. That's really important. So what I'd say is, like, when you see something on your device, we will not overreact. We'll support you. We won't take the phone off you. When you come to us about an issue, because if you say to a child, "Give me the phone," they've been cheeky to you and they tell you to feck off, let's say, right? And you go, "Give me your phone," it's gone. It's a very powerful thing to do. And so
Absolutely. You're taking their currency.
you're taking, whether you're taking their whole life away from them, their whole connection, and people are going to ask them, "Where the hell were you last night? Why weren't you on TikTok? And why weren't you Snapchatting last night, snapping last night?" But once you do that, then they're going to be way more deceptive. They're not going to tell you things, because if you overreact with the phone, take it off them, you're taking away their world, and so they won't tell you. And so it's really important that you say to them, "I will never take the phone off you. We're going to support you." That's not a parenting tool. That's their connection with the outside world. But you're going to use other things as parenting tools, but not that in particular, because you want them to talk to you about what's going on in their life.
Absolutely.
That's a really
By the
important
way, I
thing.
just wanted to tie together when you were saying that your daughter wasn't impressed when you would take the phone off her going to
Yeah,
bed.
yeah. Before that, she has to give us the phone around 9 o'clock or whatever it is. Comes out of the room, and goes downstairs and charges. So I mean, again, she wasn't happy about it. But when I gave her the phone, I said, we will check this phone from time to time. You won't see it last thing before night. It won't be the first thing you see in the morning. Those are things that, when you're downstairs and having dinner, that's a tech-free zone. There's no phones at the dinner table. And if you want to get the phone, you have to agree to that. And so she would agree to anything at that point.
To get the phone.
Just to get, oh yeah, to get the phone. And I got her to say it back to me. Say it back to me again. What did you hear me say? And then she was grand about it until she went into secondary school. And then when I was saying, "Show me the phone," not so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. We sound like we parent differently, actually.
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm coming across this in the last couple of years, I think some parents are afraid to parent.
Well, I think parents are afraid of technology. I think, when we have a fear, which is the unknown thing, technology, too, because we're not natives to these things. We're immigrants to these things. So when we are outside something, we have a fear. We might have one of those responses to that is avoidance, and
Yeah.
so we kind of like, "Oh, sure, it's grand, it's benign, it's fine." And then it's like that makes you feel even more fearful because you don't know what's going on in your child's life. And it's, but just to get a few skills around, you don't have to become Bill Gates here. You just have to figure out how to check their history, how to check their phone, how to turn off the apps. That's not that difficult.
And start a Snapchat account straight away.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up on Snapchat, was because my kids stopped communicating with me via WhatsApp.
Oh
So
yeah.
the reason why I have Snapchat is because I know they'll respond to me. Because I want to be able to have,
Communicate quickly to them. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But when I was saying that our parents are afraid to parent, I find that sometimes parents are afraid to discipline their children for fear of really messing up. And
Yeah, well, I
damaging
think,
kids.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think parents have got are misinformed that to discipline your child is some sort of torture or, whatever it is. And like, of course, that's a
Or
massive
there to
important
be
part.
consequences even.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's a really important thing because it sets a child up for a miserable life where they can't compromise and they have no friends and they struggle
Yes.
to make communications and relationships and they struggle to compromise in their relationships and Jesus, it sets a child up massively and also it delays critical thinking because
Yes.
when you set a boundary and you bring in a consequence for it, you teach your child that I chose that behavior and that behavior brought all those consequences into my life. And
Mm.
so as they go on in their lives, you're hoping, what are any of us hoping as parents is that they make the right decisions when we're not around. And so when they're over there on their 1830 holiday, they think if I jump from this balcony to that balcony, if I miss it, I could break my feckin' legs. If I go for a swim and I've been drinking, I could drown. You're bringing that thinking into their lives. You're bringing critical thinking into their lives. It's sort of, it's,
Thank you so much, Richard, for saying that, because I'm banging on about like that for years about consequences and setting the boundaries, and they have to realize the
Mm,
decisions that they're making have impacts on them and other people. And if we don't give that to little Johnny when he's 4, how would you expect him to do it when he's 19?
exactly. And I'd always
And
say
we're
the
setting the
child.
kids up for failure when we don't.
Well, I think if you look at the dropout rate from college at the moment, it's very high,
Mm,
and that's like, children, young adults not being able to manage themselves in a stressful situation.
mm,
And, what's the biggest cure to that? That if you think about anxiety, it's the big problem, I would say, amongst college students, anxiety.
mm,
And what's that? That's a fear of an unknown future event with a
mm,
paradigm, a belief that you don't have the skills to meet that unknown future event. And
mm.
what robs you from that, what develops that paradigm? Is your memory. So we've got memory for kind of like two reasons. Memory is like if a tiger ate you there, Nicola, and I'd
Mm.
have an image in my mind. So if I saw a tiger, I'd run, right? The next time I saw one. That's one reason for memory. But another reason we have memory is that it allows us to make sense of who we are today, of all the things that have happened, but more importantly, to accurately predict what will happen tomorrow. And
Yes,
so if I've got no memories of overcoming things, if I've got no memories of dealing with stuff, if I've no memories of like getting consequences, if I've no memories of like, having, discipline in my life, when I think about the future, it's a blank.
absolutely,
And
absolutely,
nothing's going to fire your limbic system and your amygdala than that blank.
absolutely. I when people present themselves to me and they tell me they're anxious, the first words out of my mouth is, "Congratulations, I'm delighted for you." And they always get quite taken aback by that.
Yeah.
Why is this a celebratory situation? I'm like, your body is working.
Mm.
I'm so happy for you that you're able to identify that as anxiousness.
Yeah.
Anxiousness is an alarm clock to alert you to the fact that you're either doing something or participating in something that isn't in alignment with your values. Now, what is it that you're doing or who you're hanging around with or a particular behavior that doesn't actually suit you, and you're putting yourself into that situation
Mm.
consistently and creating this habit and then an expectation. That's how my friends behave. That's how my colleagues behave. Now I have to row in with that. So yeah, when I congratulate people that they're experiencing, and the word suffer and experience is very important for me in that instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
When people suffer from something, it owns them. But when they experience something, it's transitional. There's a start point and an end point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
will get over it. But I
Yeah.
could talk to you about anxiety for the day. What I do want to talk to you about for a second is what we focus on expands. So I had a situation in real time, happened live, happened organically, where my very best friend, who doesn't really use social media at all, no interest in it whatsoever, said to me, I think I need to start a TikTok account so that I can keep an eye on what the kids are doing. And I said, I think that's a brilliant idea. Let's do it together. So she set up her TikTok account, and straight away she was exposed, bombarded by a load of pornography.
Mm.
And it was like in her hand, it was like her phone went on fire. She was like, oh, good God. Oh, Jesus. What is this? What's going on? And I said, Lisa, you have to teach it what you want to see and the behavior that you want to see on your phone, because what you put out is what you get back. So start typing in people's names there that inspire you. Because the TikTok algorithm is, you only think it and it's on the screen. Put in a couple of names of people that inspire you, and that's going to be fed back to you. It's really, really important, from my perspective anyway, Richard, I'd love to know your opinion on it, that if you are allowing your child to have a TikTok account or Snapchat account, that you sit with them to show them what you put in is what you get back.
Mm.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think the algorithms are particularly powerful, and
Mm-hmm.
they need to be really looked at. And I think we need legislation around them. I think
Absolutely.
we need to check. We need to protect our children from pornography. I think that's an absolutely huge thing. There's no doubt about it. When a child consumes negative, like a really extreme image, it
Mm-hmm.
fires dopamine. There's no doubt about that. And so dopamine, is the kind of the anticipation kind of reward center of the brain, but it's also involved in memory production, kind of like programming memory. So let's say if you're a kid and you watch something that's extreme like BDSM or whatever that, and you get excited by that, and let's say, you gratify yourself to that, the next time you become aroused, you're going to go back to that image again, because
Yes.
memory, it's like a food memory. It's like, that's where I
Mm-hmm.
got my food from before. It's going to satiate that. So where that leads you is into a very dark world
Dark.
of
Yeah.
isolation, and no connection,
Yeah.
and it primes kids' brains for addiction. And
Yes.
I work with it clinically all the time, Nicola. I work with the young men and couples who are starting out in their life, and they're destroyed because their intimacy is zero. And it's like, it takes a while, but you get down into the murky world of pornography and addiction.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we have to protect our children
Yeah.
from. But
And
we need
I'm a living
legislation around it.
example of that, Richard, because unfortunately, I was exposed to pornography when I was very, very young. I was
Mm,
about 8 at the time.
jeez. Yeah.
And that really did formulate my relationship with myself and
Mm,
intimate relationships as I got older. And that had a negative knock-on effect
mm,
on my life.
of course it did.
And even like
And if you think about, go on, sorry.
I'm 47 now, so that was, a long, long time ago.
If you to say, if you think about pornography in those days, let's say, right, we're the same vintage, let's say, right. So if you think
Yeah.
about pornography in those days, it was like a picture in a magazine, like Hustler or whatever, the Playboy or whatever it was, right. There wasn't anything like what it is today. So pornography today is like extreme hardcore
Yeah.
restraint, spitting and choking, and BDSM, and Boy A in the Anna Kriegel case consumed bestiality,
Yes.
and bondage stuff, and then he murders his classmate, and he lives out the fantasy that he's been consuming. We
Mm.
know this stuff damages reality. It
Yeah.
warps a child's sense of, like, what's normal and what's not normal.
And that
And
boy
then
is destroyed. He's destroyed, Richard.
mm,
That boy that created that situation for Anna. I don't know if any of that damage to his brain is reversible.
well, I mean, there's obviously a pathological. I mean, there's a serious illness there. I mean, to murder somebody like that, there's something incredibly
Mm.
pathological there. Um, so yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do here is prevent our children. It's prevention rather than trying to, like, rehabilitate someone like that. It's like, prevention is key here. Stopping a young brain that has a vulnerability in it from consuming that stuff should be of paramount importance. I can't believe that there's still no legislation in place here.
Yeah.
And then when I hear Common Amon talking about the legislation that they're bringing in, they're saying it's non-prescriptive legislation. You're going to go, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then they're saying that each platform will have to take down their material separately. That's their own business. You're going to go, that's not legislation. That's
Mm.
self-regulation, and that
Yes.
that doesn't
That's
work.
dangerous.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah.
That's equally as dangerous. But yeah, I would like to, just on a basic level, Richard, see from a whole island point of view, from the Department of Education, to really critique the language that we're painting on the walls of the schools.
Yeah.
Because language is so powerful. And let's face it, teachers and schools spend more hours in the day than we do with our children. So we don't have any control over what the exposure is in there. But
Yeah.
I definitely look, I have a plan in my head for the Department of Education and how I'd like to get involved.
Good.
But I think that would be a simple, small thing that every school could do, is critiquing the language that they're exposing our kids to. The last thing that I want to say to you is that I've been watching your journey for the last number of years. I really admire the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I want to congratulate you and thank you for using your platform in such a positive way outside of your own family and into your community and across the country. I think we need more people like you speaking the way that you do and just calling it straight. We need far more straight talkers. There's too many fluffy people going around talking about fluffy stuff. We need to speak down the middle and get to the source of the problem. Stop treating the symptom. We need to get to the source. But the last thing I want to say to you is,
thanks for that, Nicola. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome, Richard. It's my pleasure. You had said on one of the shows that I watched that there's a sign on your daughter's door, and it's the thing that you're most proud of.
Yeah.
And it says, "No boys allowed except for dads." Richard, I swear I got a lump in my throat. I was like, oh my God, it's the biggest compliment of your life.
I know. I tell you that I'll give another one. I came home today and I'm wrecked. I had a very busy few days. And this is what I found as I came into my office here. It said on a little note that my daughter was off this morning, left, and said to Dad, "I'm so lucky to have you." I was like, Jesus Christ. I came in and I was, not in a great form. I was hungry and all the rest of it, and tired. And I just saw that on my desk and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I had like tears in my eyes.
Mic drop. I retire now.
Like, job done.
Out on the top here.
I'm so lucky to have
just leave it there. If we could just have days like that every day.
I know.
If this, I know you were flat out today, so I won't hold you for much longer. But if this was your last lecture, Richard, and you could just give a message to Ireland and beyond, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus, first of all, I was saying that we have to get teeth in our legislation. We have to finally put kids before profit. We have to stop the early sexualization of children as a matter of immediacy. We have to allow our children to have their childhood. There's nothing more sacred than childhood and innocence. We have to protect that with everything. Well, because once that's gone, it's gone. Parents need to kind of not expect to be psychologists and psychotherapists and social workers to be their child's parent. They can just parent, and not being good enough at times, that's okay too. We're all just trying to muddle along here and trying to do our best with what we have. And I would say the child who gets everything enjoys nothing. So, be careful of that. No is a very important word as a parent. No, saying no is very important. And having joy in your life with your children, being spontaneous with them, that's the magic of life. Just doing little things with them, because this is an incredible miracle. This is pure magic. What we have here, life. It's 100. It's 100 to 400. It's 1 in 400 quadrillion to the power of 150,000. The chances of us being alive, that is magic. In betting terms, it's almost zero. It's like hitting the national lottery every day of the year for the next 1,000 years. That's kind of the odds of being born, and it's like, that's magic. That's a miracle, and we only get it for such a short period. Don't allow anybody.
They're only children for.
And they're only innocent for such a short period of time. And the minute those devices come into their lives, that is the end of innocence in a lot of ways. And that's the end of that relationship. That is the end of that particular relationship. That innocent childhood relationship is over once they come in. These devices, they're separating us, and so we have to kind of like just get a good policy around it, not getting rid of them, because that's how they communicate today. Not getting rid of them, but having a good policy. And in my experience, Nicola, when I talk to students about this all the time, and I talk to classes of teenagers all the time, every day, I'd say to them, if everyone in this class didn't have a phone, would you go along with it? And they'd say, yeah. Right. So they need a little bit of help with it, because they know they're stuck in it. They know it's so powerful. It's designed.
Did you see on the program that you did?
Yeah, I know. They don't even ask for the phone back. They don't even ask. And at the start, Nicola, they were saying to us, when I was working with them, they're like, "I'm not giving my phone away." And I was like, "Oh, we'll see now." And they were like, "No, I'm not. No one's taking my phone off me." And then when they went down, they handed it over straight away. Not happy about it. You could see them. But they didn't ask for them back. And they were like, "Oh, Jesus, yeah, I forgot my phone."
I know. And Richard, we sit down and we watch that as a family. And we come away.
It was lovely, the show, isn't it?
It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Special show, yeah.
We come away from that. Now, I have a 19-year-old and I have a 16-year-old. And we all watch that together, and with my husband. And we come away just feeling elated for the kids, first of all.
I know.
That they had that experience. And all they're looking for is the connection,
the
bond, and to have a purpose.
That's
And
it.
I come away from watching that program and I'm just that little bit more grateful for my life
Exactly.
and for my kids.
Yeah,
Thank
me
God.
too. I was working. I
Thank
think
God.
it's the great privilege to be working with people and to hear their stories. And that's always been something that really excites me. And yeah, and go easy on yourself. If I sent to my last lecture, I'd say, get that relationship up here a bit better, because if you get that better, everything is much easier. And
Internal
yeah,
sustainability.
that voice exactly is can be a tyrant, or it can be someone who drives you on. And I'd
Yes.
much rather it be someone who drives me on.
Yeah. I discovered a song yesterday. It's called Bodies. The name of the artist escapes me, but I will put it in a link underneath this
Yeah,
podcast. And there's a line in it that sent me over the edge. I'm not my thoughts. This is my house, and these are my rules.
yeah,
I'm
good.
just like, that's a lady who's getting her ego in check and getting negative self-talk
Yeah.
under control, and
Well,
it should operate.
thoughts are just habits. They're not
Yeah,
reality. They're not
yeah,
true. They're just habits. That's all it is.
absolutely. Well, Richard, delighted that that's what you say in your last lecture. If anybody hasn't looked at Richard's work, I implore you to go and read anything that you can on his social media, read his books, watch the documentaries. The man speaks sense. He is
Thank
talking
you.
sense. So go and check him out. Richard, I'm so grateful to you for your
No,
time.
it's lovely to be on the show. Thanks a million.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll get this out ASAP.
No problem. Chat again soon.
Take it easy.
See
Slán.
you. Bye.